You know, there's a question that sounds incredibly simple, but it's actually a 5,000-year-old mystery. What is 1 ounce of silver really worth? As we're about to find out, trying to nail down a single number takes us on a wild ride through history, shifting power, and even a political plot twist. So let's dive in. So, let's just put it right out there. This is our central question. What is 1 single ounce of silver actually worth? You'd think there'd be a straightforward answer, right? Well, as you're about to see, it is anything but simple. Okay, so one answer you might get is, well, it's worth about 80 bucks. That's a recent market price. Pretty easy, right? Case closed, but not so fast. What if we try measuring it against gold? These days, an ounce of silver will get you about 1/60th of an ounce of gold, which, if you know the history, is a huge ratio. So that's a totally different way of framing its value. Or hey, how about we forget dollars and gold and just ask what it can buy? An ounce of silver today, that'll get you maybe 20 loaves of bread. This is a measure of its real-world purchasing power, and it gives us yet another number to wrestle with. So let's recap. We have a dollar price, a ratio to gold, and what it can buy you for lunch. Three totally plausible answers that paint three completely different pictures. So what is going on here? To get to the bottom of this, we have to rewind the clock way, way back. Okay, so for the next part, we're looking at the 5,000-year-old answer, back when value was obvious. And here's the crazy part. For most of human history, that question we just asked, what is silver worth, it wouldn't have even made sense. The answer was just self-evident. And this, right here, is the absolute key. For 5 millennia, you didn't ask what silver was worth because everything else was valued in silver. It wasn't the thing being measured, it was the measuring stick itself. This gets at a really important economic idea called the unit of account. Just think of it like the ultimate ruler, the one thing whose own price is always, by definition, one. For thousands of years, that was silver's job. A salary wasn't worth a pound of silver, the salary was a pound of silver. This quote just says it all, doesn't it? A Roman denarius was a silver coin. Asking how much it cost in denarii would be like asking how many inches long in inches. The question is its own answer. Silver's value was just a fundamental truth of the economic world. So what on earth changed? Well, that brings us to our investigation and a lineup of some very flawed yardsticks. See, today, silver is no longer the measure. It's just another thing being measured. So we have to pick a tool to value it with. Let's look at the usual suspects and see why none of them really work. First up, the good old US dollar. You hear it all the time. The dollar has lost 99% of its value against silver, but this comparison is actually pretty misleading. It totally ignores that silver itself has changed massively. We got way better at mining it, which flooded the market, and its mean job shifted from being money to being a vital industrial metal. It's kind of like trying to measure a speeding car with a ruler that's also shrinking. It just doesn't work. Okay, then what about gold? The gold to silver ratio is a classic, right? But it's got two huge problems. First, those historical ratios everyone loves to quote, they weren't some law of nature. They were political decisions made by governments. And second, today, gold and silver are playing totally different games. Gold is mostly about investment, while more than half of all silver gets used up in factories. And finally, there's the bread test. A Roman soldier could buy about a dozen loaves of bread with his daily silver pay. Today, an ounce gets you about 20. But here's the real insight. It's not that silver failed this test. The test itself was deliberately broken. And that, my friends, leads us to the big plot twist in our story. So here's the twist. Silver's value didn't just fade away because of market forces. It was taken. You could almost think of it like a crime scene, where the victim was silver's 5,000-year-long status as money. And here are the smoking guns. These are the four big legislative strikes. Over 92 years, a series of laws just systematically dismantled silver's role as money. It started in 1873, and the final nail in the coffin was in 1965 when they took it out of our coins entirely. Let me put it this way. Silver didn't fail at being money. It was fired from the job. And this is the point I really want you to take away. We've been blaming our tools, the dollar, gold, even bread. But the problem was never the yardsticks. The real problem is that the very thing we were trying to measure had its most important feature, its monetary value, legislated right out of existence. So where does that leave us today? Well, it leaves us with modern silver, a metal with a serious identity crisis. It's constantly being pulled in two different directions. About 60% of demand is industrial. It's in your phone, your car, in solar panels. The other 40% is for investment and jewelry, kind of a ghost of its monetary past.
And this creates a huge conflict, right? A manufacturer in a factory values silver for its physical properties, what it can do. An investor, on the other hand, values it for what it might preserve, its potential as a store of wealth. They're buying the exact same metal for completely opposite reasons. So who's right? Which of these sets the true value? The answer is, well, it's both and it's neither.
All right, so that brings us to the resolution. If trying to find one magic number for silver's value is basically a lost cause, then what do we do? The solution isn't to find a better yardstick. It's to start asking a much better question. The big insight here is that we have to stop asking, what is it worth? That question will only lead you down a rabbit hole. The real key is to completely reframe how we think about it. See, the right question depends entirely on what you're trying to do. Are you actually buying or selling some? Then the real question is, what are my all-in costs, right here, right now? Are you thinking about it for a portfolio? Then you should be asking, how much of this roller coaster volatility can I handle? If you're using it in a factory, you're asking, at what price point should I just use a different metal? Each of these questions has a real, tangible answer, unlike that vague, mysterious, what's it worth? And that, right there, is the final takeaway. The silver enigma isn't solved by finding some hidden number. It's solved when you realize that the reason you're asking the question, that's what determines the only answer that will ever really matter to you. So I'll just leave you with this final thought. The next time you think about the value of silver, or really the value of anything, take a second and ask yourself, what am I really asking?